I'm here with our friend Robert Gordon and our friend Olaf. Hello, Olaf. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you very
Robert,
much.
how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nick.
Good. We've just been to see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at Theatre Royal Drury Lane. I've seen it before. I was at the very first preview, and we talked about that on the podcast before, and I wanted to return to see one bit specifically, but to see how the show had shaped and got fatter from all the chocolate that has been pumped into this show. Who wants to go first with their thoughts?
Why don't you tell us what has changed?
There is a song sort of early on in this first act, which I think should open the first act, about the sort of the magical, I can't even remember what it's called, the wonderful Willy Wonka and his backstory and they added this whole brand new bit in the show now about the Indian palace, which the Sultan of India, I guess, asked to be built of chocolate, and it all melted because of the sun. That was not in the production, to my memory. And there's a lovely magic trick at the end, which I won't reveal, which was new for me. And a couple of projections were new, but they're easy to add. And the elevator, which we'll talk about in a bit. But Olaf, tell us your thoughts about the show tonight.
I don't think it comes together. That's the biggest problem I have. I think the style isn't consistent, neither in the music, which I think has a lot of prestige of all sorts of different forms, whether it's Bavarian, American hip-hop and other forms. And then there is, in a rather unfortunate spot, I think, from Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman, Pure Imagination from the first film version, and it must be rather cruel to the composers that the big spot at the end of the show is taken up by a song they didn't write. That must be hard. But also in the design, which I think mixes very big set pieces, projections, and a lot of trapdoors and costume changes. And things being flown in without really coming together and creating a really a magic show. There are a few magical moments, but on the whole, to me, no, it's not enough magic. It's not. There's no real wow factor, neither in the music and the songs nor in the set. Even though the performances are lovely.
Now, you'll forgive me, I'm just getting over a cold, so if I hack my brains out, just ignore it, listeners, whilst Robert talks about his thoughts on the show.
I agree with everything Olaf said, but I want to say that what I feel is wrong is there is a disconnect between the narrative drive of the story as it is told on stage and the spectacle. It seems to me that the production has been conceived to be as spectacular as possible, but having said that, the first act won't allow spectacle, because obviously the spectacle which is necessary to the telling of the story is all in the chocolate factory, which happens in the second act.
But yet the first act has the most spectacular moment, in my opinion.
Which is what?
With the paper aeroplane.
But that's a very small gesture, and it's magic, and it just proves that you don't need huge amounts of scenery on stage, moving around on stage, to create wonderful magic and spectacle. But what I think that they've done, and I think this is it goes back to the original conception of the storytelling. If you design a show with spectacle in it, the moments of maximum spectacle must coincide with important moments in the storytelling, and this never happens except at one magical moment when the elevator goes up and Willie and Charlie are in the elevator, and it's the peak moment it's a climactic moment in the storytelling, and it's the one magical moment for me in the design. Everything else seems like decoration, and I'm afraid the songs too. At times, I didn't see the relationship of all the songs to the storytelling.
The elevator truly was magical until it broke.
Well, that was a little bit unfortunate, and we couldn't quite see it from where we're sitting. I know Douglas Hodge could deal with it. I'm not quite sure whether the little boy could, being stuck up there in the air, but he dealt with it bravely, and he was wonderful when he came back. So, yeah, all of a sudden the magic was very earthbound, even though they're supposed to fly through the sky.
So they weren't.
No, they weren't, no. Another problem that I feel has to do, I'm not quite sure whether it's in the writing or in Douglas Hodge's performance, because I don't think he made quite up his mind up where Willy Wonka is supposed to be a creep or whether he's supposed to be just a lovable eccentric. There were moments of both in there, and I'm not quite sure whether that the show comes together because of that. If you compare that to Gene Wilder, who was really always a manic eccentric, but still very sympathetic, and then you have the really creepy and odd performance of Johnny Depp, which I think was inspired by Michael Jackson. They both knew where they were going, but I think the show wants to have it both ways. There's on the one hand the rather cruel way that he treats the children, even though there are reassurances that the children in the end haven't really died, the 4 other children who get punished for not following the rules. But still, it seems a rather odd mixture between making him a lovable clown and having him sometimes really frightening to what he's quite strict in the way that you follow the rules, or otherwise you get punished really horribly.
A
very German concept, yeah.
I have to say, and I forgive me for comparing it with Matilda, the other Roald Dahl show in town.
No one's done that at all.
But it does come so soon after the huge success and the Tony Award for Dennis Kelly for Matilda. It does make you realise how much better the book for Matilda, for the stage show of Matilda, is, because
it goes places where the novel doesn't.
Yes,
and Charlie doesn't.
And I think, following up the point that Olaf made, is that they're not sure about character. They haven't decided what the heart of the story is. They've actually conceived the show. It seems to me the whole production team have conceived the show as an excuse to show us as many wonderful effects as possible. Now, having said that, the kids in the audience did seem to love it, and so that obviously does go down with them, but it's what I call the sort of Palladium Panto effect. It means shove in as many different gags and gimmicks and set pieces as you can to keep the show varied and hope that the audience will enjoy it on the level of a kind of review. But that's not what the essence of musical theatre is. And the essence of musical theatre seems to me to be in the way the story is told through the songs. And I couldn't follow the arc of the story through the songs. Every now and again, I mean, most of the songs are quite pleasant, and every now and then a song develops and you think, oh, it's about to become a big number, and then it stops. And I felt almost every one of the major numbers in the show demanded much more a development into dance, development into spectacle, development into storytelling through song, and that never happened.
For example, there's a bit where the Oompa Loompas first song, and they start to do a tap dance, and that's the end of the song.
Yes, exactly. The Oompa Loompas, it's a wonderful image for the first 2 minutes, but then very shortly after that the song ends. So it doesn't go anywhere, and then you wonder, why have the Oompa Loompas there at all, except for the fact that if they didn't have the Oompa Loompas, the audience would be so disappointed. And I felt that tonight the show was being enjoyed by the audience on the goodwill factor that people know one or both of the films, they know the book, and they were so excited even before it began that they were applauding just as the lights went down. And I think the audience wanted to love it, and so they enjoyed it.
We have to say this is a Friday night in June, and we booked the tickets 6 hours ago.
Yes, so it does suggest that even the 4-star reviews, although they were fairly iffy in some ways, haven't sent a stampede to the box office.
Again, to compare it to Matilda, I remember you could not get a ticket for that show, and here we are on a Friday night in summer, and we're able to not get amazing seats because they're too expensive, and that's another issue this show will suffer from. We were able to get middle of the range seats.
It was fairly full, you have to say, and it seemed, I agree with Robert, that the audience was clearly primed to like it. It seemed a little bit like what I experienced when I saw The Little Mermaid in New York. People came in wanting to love it because they loved the film, they had bought all the merchandise, they were really excited to see it, and that clearly didn't last.
You always know it's a bad sign when during the curtain call the audience are clapping in time to the music and they're not clapping, completely off their, you know what I mean? They're not cheering, they're just clapping along with the music.
Yeah. Another thing that I found rather peculiar is that I can't remember another show where I had so many problems understanding the lyrics. At times it seemed to be a problem of the sound design. Some numbers clearly were a little bit too difficult for the children that had to sing them, the rap numbers.
And it's a shame because Scott Whitman's lyrics are generally worth hearing.
Yes, it seemed that once you, in the moments when you could hear the lyrics, actually a lot of them were quite witty and made sense. And you wish you could hear the other one just to see how it all came together.
This is the problem which the one critic of Matilda is that it's hard to understand the lyrics. Yes. So maybe Dahl kind of demands a sort of quick patter songs, and there's a patter song that opens Act 2 called Strike That, Reverse It.
Though I think that Douglas Hodge worked very hard to project that song and did an amazing job. The tempo is so fast that I couldn't understand a word of the
I think there's a bit where he's reciting the contract where we're not even meant to understand it.
Yes.
But it's not all bad, this show. Douglas Hodge is brilliant. The kids were brilliant. The kid playing Charlie
is brilliant.
Was phenomenal.
And he actually has a lot of soul. He actually made you feel for him and made you want to root.
He had a lot of soul.
He made you want to root for the character, which was great. And Nigel Planer is excellent, as are all the grandparents.
Yeah. The issue I have with the show is I think the opening is a bit slow, and there's a 5-minute film, and it didn't seem like 5 minutes, but it is 5 minutes, that film.
It's a non sequitur.
Have the film, but have a song as well as the film explaining about chocolate being created.
But it's all very well to have a song about chocolate being created, but people actually come to have the story that they know so well told, and to put that red herring before them and take 5 minutes over it is very distracting. And quite frankly, I don't think that the show ever quite recovers from two false openings. One is the story of chocolate being made, which is done as a series of cartoons on screen.
Quentin Blake as well, which is a nice touch.
Yes, but at that point in the show, you don't want it. And the next one is the opening introduction to Charlie and the old man who turns out to be Willy Wonka. And it seems to me that the show has lost momentum by that time. For me, if the show had started with the grandparents in the bed, it would have been funnier, quirkier and wittier, and we would have then followed the story of Charlie wanting to win a ticket much more intently.
A big part of Act 1 is when we meet the families through a quite inventive staging of the television appearing on the stage, which is very clever, I think.
Yes, we have 4 songs in a row introducing all the winners of the golden tickets up to that point. The last one to win, of course, is Charlie. And they all, in themselves, parody a typical national form of music or lyrics and some jokes in a moment. But in a way, in themselves, they're all nice, but they are, as a whole, too long. The whole sequence of 4 songs is too long. And you just think, wouldn't it have been possible? Wouldn't it have been possible to introduce all 4 of them in one song? Give each of them a stanza, and they can just explain very well that one of them likes to chew gum, and the other can't stop eating, and the girl in pink is greedy but also incredibly stubborn and spoiled. It wouldn't need to take that long, and it makes the first act seem very long, because in a way the audience knows that Charlie will win the ticket, and to stretch that out for over an hour actually, before Willy Wonka finally appears, seems to me a little bit of a waste of time.
Talk to me about the Bavarian song.
Okay, now being German, I think that the Bavarian song is a little bit obvious, to say the least. Some of the lyrics are quite fun, but I think it's very crudely staged and crudely played. But on the other hand, I have to admit that the audience clearly seemed to love it, especially the man next to me.
It's also a very old and dated stereotype. But I mean, the idea of yodeling Bavarians.
Yodeling is not even German, is it?
I don't know where it's...
Swiss?
I don't know where it started, actually. I have no idea, but it is clearly in the area of Switzerland, Austria, Bavaria, which is very near together. But I can tell you that most people in Bavaria nowadays probably would rather be shot dead than yodel. So, okay, it's supposed to be a sort of a spoof of that, but then don't you think we've had those weird Bavarians already in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and I've seen them so often that I think that, with the writers of Hairspray, you think, couldn't they have come up with something a little bit more original?
None of the jokes are really up to date. None of them really have a contemporary feel. And I think the best one, you're about to say that, I think, but I think the best one in that sequence is the woman with the TV, the boy who's a kind of little rap star gaming freak, and she's trying to be the perfect 1950s American housewife, but she's totally tranquilized, etc. I found that was witty, and the lyrics for that scene were witty. But as Olaf said, if we had simply had the same song and moved from stanza to stanza in a different style for each national stereotype, it would have been much cleverer and much faster, and it also would have driven the story. And then the disappointment that Charlie doesn't win a ticket until the end much quicker, and we would have actually been more interested and remained interested. Whereas by the time Charlie does win, it's an anticlimax because we've taken so long to watch all these songs on the television screen.
Even though I have to say that the show, I think throughout, keeps the goodwill of the audience. There were only one or two moments, especially in the second act, where I felt a little bit bored because the disco number seemed to me totally out of place. I think that was the one where the girl turned into a blueberry and sort of exploded, or maybe she didn't. On the whole, it kept your interest, but it was never magical. That was the one thing that I was missing. There was never a moment where you come out feeling elated, where you have except for the one moment we talked about earlier, the one with the lift, where suddenly everything comes together and you think it's very simple. It's just the lift and lighting and two characters. And it works.
Same with the aeroplane.
Yes.
It's on a much bigger scale.
Yes.
I was also surprised, because I think Peter Darling is the choreographer, isn't he? And I was also surprised that the director didn't give Peter Darling an opportunity to really develop a dance number fully. It seemed to me that every time we had a chorus group, they came on, they did a little bit of formation dancing of one kind or another, whether it was tap dancing or whether it was some kind of crazy disco dance or rave. They did about a minute of dancing and it stopped. I always felt that the stage seemed underpopulated in the dance numbers. It's a big stage, but I thought, well, if you're doing a big musical, is there never going to be a number where, as in Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious in Mary Poppins at the Prince Edward Theatre, you felt the whole audience and the whole cast are together in a moment of sheer exhilaration, and you don't want it to stop. And indeed, that was a very long, extended number, which was extended from the film for the stage production of Mary Poppins. There's never a moment like that in Charlie.
It doesn't help that your sort of comedic characters in the whole of Act 1 are bedridden.
No, but wouldn't have been nice to have seen them lying in bed, kicking their legs in the air from that position? That would have been witty, and I thought indeed it was going to happen, but it never did.
Or Zimmer frames, or something to that producer's style.
Well, there are ways of doing that as a kind of gag, where the characters, I've seen people dancing in a chair where they never leave the chair, but their legs are doing the dancing, although their backsides are always rooted to the chair.
I think also we need to talk a little bit about Sam Mendes and the direction that he provided for this, because there were moments when I felt he was just doing a very craftsman-like job, if at all. It was never seemed to me inspired. And there was one moment near the end which I found totally surprising, and that is when Willy Wonka leaves. You see him leave the stage and you wonder, why does nobody address him while he leaves? Why does nobody look at him? The major characters then come back, look around and say, oh, where's Willy Wonka? And the whole audience could point out is that he just left on the one side.
Didn't see him.
You didn't see that. I noticed that the minute, and I just thought, why, as it's all about being magical, why don't they distract us with a magic trick or whatever, and then he's just gone from the stage?
I thought that was a piece of very lazy direction, and I can't remember now, but I felt there were other moments of lazy direction when people are on stage who don't need to be, or certain moments of an action scene are not focused, and you don't know who the centre of attention is. And that seems to me, that's what I call the Palladium Panto. It's just all sorts of things are happening all over the place, and there's no real focus. But I thought that one fault was a very big fault, because I actually asked you, I don't know if you heard me, but I turned to you and said, why has he left the stage? There was absolutely no motivation for the central character in the show to just walk off stage in the middle of a number.
We have to say that this is in the number where the Oompa Loompas are sort of handing over the factory to Charlie, and I don't think we're meant to notice him leave, because he's just meant to be gone.
But you do, because he is the central character on stage.
Yes, and he's actually standing in the center of the stage and then takes a rather long way to get off the stage.
I kept thinking he's going to come back with a complete costume change and some kind of magic, and appear in a totally different guise, but that never happened.
I also felt that the costume, as we're talking about costume, the costume of Willy Wonka reminded me too much of the Joker in the first Batman by Tim Burton. And I just thought, yeah, that's a nice, colourful costume, but I was hoping for something a little bit more original.
Jack Nicholson would be a very good Willy Wonka.
He definitely would be very frightening.
Yes, and I felt the score was decent, but very seldom.
Well, you liked some of the songs, didn't you?
Yes, I did, but I thought it very seldom really took fire, and I felt that you've got a performer as skillful and as riveting as one knows Douglas Hodge can be, and I thought there was only one opportunity in his first in the end of the first act, which is his first solo song, where the writing of the song started to give him an opportunity to actually do something as an actor on stage. And then it stopped. I felt in the second half the songs were very easy and sort of light ballady songs, and it's rather.
He does have a lovely song called "Second Nature" or something.
"Second Nature" was good, but I found the staging of that scene very unfocused,
and also the chocolate garden that's rubbish.
Well, everybody's wandering around this very strange garden that never looks as if it's made out of chocolates or sweets. It just looks like a fake flowers. I thought all the children are wandering around, and there's no focus on Willie singing "Second Nature." So although I love the song, it didn't seem to me to contribute to telling the story of what was happening on stage. All the songs were pleasant. It's sad to say that the one song where I felt a thrill was the Brickus and Newley song, the only song that they've used from the original film, and it seemed odd that although it's uncredited, that they're uncredited as writers, which is rather shocking, that was chosen to be the central moment emotionally in the whole show. That in fact, since Shaman and Whitman did all the other songs, they weren't asked to.
Or maybe they were and they couldn't
reconceive that song.
Why not even bother? Let's just give them what they want. But I wish they would have done the Mary Poppins treatment and used. There were 5 good songs in the Leslie Brickus and Anthony Newley score. The Golden Ticket song, Candyman, though the division on that song is somewhat present in
the jury is out.
Yes, and the Veruca Salt song, I Want It Now, Live or Die Without the Oompa Loompa songs. I thought the Shaman and Whitman's ones are more interesting at least. Than Oompa Loompa Doobly Doo.
But the other thing,
Pure Imagination.
Yeah,
I wish they would have used those songs and got Shaman and Whitman or Stars and Drew or.
But I think it had the same.
To expand it.
It was the same situation that you had with Shrek, which Anita Sori wrote a score, which I think is far inferior to the one we've heard tonight, but they had to. Have the song Can't Stop Believing. I think that's the one that Shrek sings in the movie, and so the audience needed that song because they associated with the film. And I think Pure Imagination is probably by far the best known of the songs in the 1971 version, and so they decided we need that one song. It's a little bit like having Fame on stage, and you need Fame the title song because that's what audiences are expecting.
Yes. It's the hook. It's the hook to the original film. I think, but the other
Grease, being an example, now has to have the one that I want.
It's a very good.
I think that the other thing is although I think they're very skillful as songwriters, and I love the score of Hairspray, I don't actually think they were the right choice of writers. I thought all the way through the show, much as I love American show music, I kept thinking these songs sound very American, and they always seemed happiest when they were writing for the American characters in the show. And I think Stiles and Drew would have been a far better choice. I think, to go back to your point about if they'd used the Brickus and Newley songs and perhaps cut some of the weaker ones from the Brickus and Newley score, and then got Stiles and Drew to do the sort of thing they did in Mary Poppins, we would have created a musical world which was more coherently British. And I felt that's what the whole show lacked. It lacked a coherent musical world, and it lacked a coherent visual world.
With all the people involved, you have the songwriting team of Hairspray, and of Smash/Bombshell, if you prefer that score. You have Douglas Hodge, who is such a wonderful performer of straight and musical theatre roles. You have Sam Mendes. And of course you have obviously a very huge budget.
£10 million.
£10 million. Okay, I didn't know that, but that seems appropriate. If you want to raise a show make a show in a theatre that big. I can't help feeling a little bit as if everyone was, in the end, landing below what they can do. They weren't actually at the height of their powers. The score is slightly disappointing for me. The direction isn't great. Douglas Hodge, a wonderful performer that is, seems to be hemmed in by the character he gets to work with, and you just think it should have been more exciting than it was.
It's a missed opportunity. I think it's fair to say that people will enjoy it.
Yes, of course.
But I think most people will feel, as I think most of the national critics have said, that although many of them gave it